landfill, they do not disintegrate. You cannot recycle them. They will be there forever. So I think that there's just a misunderstanding of just how really green these are.
Well, that's right. There's no painless way to get energy. I mean, every energy source has a downside, period, whether it's nuclear, hydro, coal plants, natural gas. It doesn't matter. They all have a downside. Energy is not free. It never will be. But the downside from wind farms so far exceeds their upside.
Okay, so I apologize. You did get a bonus garbage person there, and I'll address what Tucker Carlson had to say. But her first point was, it's not green because you can't recycle the blades. And bear in mind, they really care about recycling in the same way that they really care about women's high school sports. It's not just a political thing that they're using. They really care about it. And so, look, she's not 100% wrong. Bloomberg Green reported earlier this year that wind turbine blades being disposed of in landfills, that does actually happen. Even though the waste stream represents only a tiny fraction of US municipal solid waste, it's clearly not an ideal situation. And that is true. And so right now, some of those blades do get thrown away. Unlike old coal plants, those get turned into rumpus rooms and things like that. All of that is reusable. The machinery they use to dig out coal, the oil derricks, all of that totally reusable. They turn it into textbooks later on. You'll notice they didn't actually apply that logic to the dirty energy, just to the turbines. But I want to reassure you that there is progress being made in this. Two large utilities in the US, Pacific Corp and Mid-American Energy, are working with the Tennessee company Carbon Rivers to recycle some of the utilities' spent turbine blades. Europe has companies that are working on it as well. They have all these technologies that I don't even know how to pronounce that they're working on to eventually be able to recycle them. But again, they're not recycling all of the dirty stuff like, the oil tankers. Are they being turned into Royal Caribbean rides? Like the derricks out in the Gulf Coast, they're not turned into Club Med after. Like, why are we only talking about turbines with this? And by the way, I will point out to the second point that, well, if you can't recycle them, as Tucker Carlson says, then it's just as bad as everything. In fact, worse, the cons way outweigh the benefits because of the recycling. I will remind you, we've read this before. New research from Harvard University in collaboration with a bunch of others found that more than 8 million people died in 2018 alone from fossil fuel pollution. That means that air pollution for burning fossil fuels like coal and diesel were responsible for about 20% of all deaths on Earth in 2018. But you can't recycle the turbine blades, so you weigh the pros and cons on that, America. Brett, what do you think?
I think it's just the saddest part is the person who knew that, the saddest part is the person who knew that they needed something bad to say about windmills. They just hadn't gotten it yet. And they think that this is a really good burn. And Dana 100%. Perino said it. And then Tucker Carlson just like, absolutely true. He doesn't know if that's true. He has no clue if that's true. That is a tell from Tucker Carlson. Yes, that's true. When he doesn't care about it, he just believes the person on his show is there and he wants them to feel good and he wants the audience to feel like everything that's said by a guest is something that they should take straight to the bank. When the sad part is the only person taking stuff to the bank is Tucker Carlson.
That's true. Hey, the coal CEOs are doing pretty well too. But you're right. Okay, well, those are our garbage people, but who did you vote for? Well, 32,000 of you went and voted this week. And here are your top 5 community garbage people of the week. Coming in at number 5 with 4% of the vote is Jay Jacobs for comparing India Walton to David Duke. That was so bad. At number 4 with 8% of the vote is the New York subway officers for refusing to wear masks on the job and in fact booting people out if they ask them to wear masks. Number 3 with 12% of the vote is Mo Brooks for profiting off Pfizer while being anti-vax. I'm glad that that's at least in number 3. That was an important story. Number 2, you've got with 25% of the vote, Madison Cawthorn for telling moms to raise their sons to be monsters. Ugh. But number 1, oh no. With 51% of the vote, Tucker Carlson for turning Colin Powell's death into propaganda about literally everything. That is your community garbage person of the week. Thank you to everybody who voted. But thank you especially to Brett Ehrlich for joining me, not only as he does every week, but in fact this week, his vacation week. Brett, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm gonna go get my petty now. Hey, what are you guys up to? I'm gonna go get my parasite peel. I'll be back next week.
Hilarious. Anyway, thank you, everybody. It's been a big old week. We still got more for you. The Power Panel, Nina Turner and Francesca Fiorentini and Farron Cousins and Wosny Lambre. And then there's Game Busters and also Galaxy Brain. There's a lot going on, but Indisputable is up next. You don't want to miss it. I'll see you a little bit later on, but until then, stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and we'll see you soon.
Welcome into TYT's Indisputable, and as you may notice, I am not Dr. Rasad Ritchie. I am Adrienne Lawrence. You've often seen me on TYT as a legal analyst and host, and I am filling in today for Dr. Ritchie because, as you heard him say yesterday, he is in the process of nursing some NyQuil. So he will be back hopefully on Monday, but in the meantime, today you are stuck with me, and we've got some great stories for you today. And we also have an amazing guest host who you should be familiar with. We know Big Woes. We're talking about Wosny Lambre. You know, he's a writer at The Ringer as well as a host himself. So it's gonna be great. We're excited. Let's go ahead and jump into it with this first story here. This one comes out of Louisiana, and it is an update that hopefully you may have not expected, but unfortunately too often is this the case. We have that Louisiana deputy, do you remember him? He's the one who slammed that 34-year-old Shantel Arnold to the ground. Well, he has now been identified. We actually have a name associated with this man. And again, you may not be shocked and surprised, but you also may be appalled to hear about his background. Now, for some of you who may not necessarily remember it, what we're gonna do is play the clip for you right now of the altercation with him and Miss Arnold. And please remember, this is graphic and it can be quite disturbing.
H.
Oh, he got it on. In that video, he had slammed her to the ground, dragged her by the hair. You know, it was disgusting when we saw it, and we just needed to put a name to this man. So let's go ahead and put his photo on the screen as I identify him. He has been identified as Jefferson Parish Deputy Julio Alvarado, and that's according to multiple sources, Mr. Julio Alvarado. Now, he's been with the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Department for 16 years. 16 years, this man is a veteran. And he also has racked up quite the number of civil rights lawsuits. According to ProPublica, 9 federal civil rights lawsuits that he is tied to, all involving some excessive use of force. According to ProPublica, the report, multiple sources have reviewed the video's content, confirmed that the deputy was Julio Alvarado, a 16-year veteran of the sheriff's office. Alvarado has been named in 9 federal civil rights lawsuits, all involving the use of excessive force, the most of any deputy currently employed by the sheriff's office. This man practically is receiving awards here. Now, 2 suits were settled. One of them involved the beating of a 14-year-old boy, and 2 of the suits are still pending, with the remaining dismissed. Now, the sheriff's office policy, in keeping with its usual policy, well, what it did is it did not respond to the request to identify the deputy when asked Thursday, but the office has said it opened an internal probe into the deputy's actions shortly after the incident, though Arnold did not file a complaint. That's an action the sheriff's office often does not take. So this is pretty rare, and that's even in cases where citizens complain about an inappropriate use of force. According to ProPublica, the probe remains open. At the same time, the office issued a statement on Wednesday saying the video had been selectively edited. The statement asserted that Arnold was intoxicated and that she had been resisting arrest. But according to 2 witnesses there, Lionel Gray, whom Arnold considers a stepfather, and Arnold's 55-year-old uncle, Tony Gibbons, Alvarado jumped out of his vehicle, grabbed Arnold, and threw her to the ground unprovoked. Now, Gray and Gibbons also denied that she had resisted arrest. This is this 34-year-old woman who we saw being dragged by her hair by this deputy Alvarado. Now, when asked whether she resisted, Arnold said to the investigator, "If you call asking what's going on, resisting." Now, we all got to see that, and we also get to learn more about this man's history, Deputy Alvarado, which we'll talk a little bit more about. But, Woz, I'd like to know, how does this sit with you so far, especially in terms of the sheriff's department essentially trying to claim she was intoxicated and the quote unquote, common resisting arrest cry we often hear?
Yeah, we can never be surprised whenever cops circle the wagons for other cops. That's kind of the standard operating procedure for those guys. Nobody holds anybody accountable. Everything is fair game with these guys. That's just how it goes. I think in an ideal society, we would have a police force that is held to a higher standard than us, right? As civilians, we don't even get to our standard, right? Like, this guy has 9 infractions. If a cop goes into a situation knowing I've been arrested 9 times or I've been in trouble 9 times, that's basically license for him to treat me like a freaking animal. Basically is what they'll tell you after they treat you a certain way. But when cops can go out and abuse the public over and over and over again, it's expected to just be like, No, it's cool. It's kind of crazy to see that. And then again, I've been on the show a decent amount of times, and we have fun with the Karens of the worlds. And anytime a cop shows up to one of those situations, he's cool, calm, and collected. He's de-escalating. He's, basically playing the good cop role, basically being like, I'm your friend. Let's take care of this. Let's be cool. And to be clear, it's not that we want cops to go out and drag white women by the hair too. We would just like to see them apply that same standard of humanity and dignity to all of our citizens, that it seems like most of the time only white people get the benefit of the doubt.
Yep, absolutely. And I think we've all definitely seen that, especially over the last year and a half when things have really come front and center post George Floyd. And we saw a lawsuit come out of that case, as a lot of cases. And let's talk about this Deputy Alvarado, all of the 9 lawsuits against him. We won't go through every one of them, but according to ProPublica, the report we have here says that Alvarado has a history of excessive force allegations. A 2016 lawsuit claimed Alvarado grabbed a 14-year-old Hispanic boy by the neck and slammed his head against the ground and concrete as the child was screaming, "Why are you doing this to me?" Alvarado then threatened to have the boy and his family deported, according to the suit. The sheriff's office in court filings said that Alvarado's actions were reasonable under the circumstances. I'm dying to know what these circumstances were, given that it's a 14-year-old boy, and I doubt he's about 250 pounds, And so the thought that the case even settled for 15 grand, I can tell you as a lawyer that ain't nothing. That's chump change, especially when a lawyer is getting at least 30%. And hey, I'm sure there were taxes taking a bite out of that too. But the trauma to this young man will last him the rest of his life. But let's talk a little bit more about the other suit against Deputy Alvarado. So 2 years later, a lawsuit claimed Alvarado and 3 deputies beat Adner Casco, a Honduran native, and stole more than $2,000 from him during a traffic stop, then conspired to have him deported. That suit was settled on Tuesday before Thanksgiving last year for $50,000. Again, the trauma there. And the fact that there almost seems to be a history here with Alvarado essentially using the fact that individuals aren't necessarily citizens or could be deported. We got a problem here. And what we need is definitely some accountability when it comes to Alvarado. And we will see what will happen, especially given that he is involved in those 9 federal lawsuits, has faced the most complaints of anyone in that department. And finally, the department has decided to do something in terms of an investigation. But let's go ahead and move on to our next story here, which takes us to another sheriff's office, but this time in Los Angeles, California. Now, Steve Bannon doesn't seem to be the only one out there trying to dodge subpoenas. Also, LA County Sheriff Alex Villanueva and his second in command seem to not want to answer questions by dodging lawsuits or dodging subpoenas to answer questions about allegations of having gang activity going on in the sheriff's department. You'd think he'd want to stand up and say that this doesn't go on, but apparently he decided that he'd prefer to be elsewhere. And this is according to a report from the LA Times. Let's see what they had to say. So according to the LA Times, the latest subpoenas called for Villanueva and Undersheriff Tim Murakami to appear at the commission's meeting Thursday. Villanueva was subpoenaed to testify about gang-like groups. And well, that was of deputies following the release of a study LA County officials commissioned the Rand Corp to conduct on the issue. Now, the study found that 16% of the 1,608 deputies and supervisors who anonymously surveyed questions have been invited to join a group, with some invitations having come in at least the last 5 years. Yes, the last 5 years. And we've heard so much in the media about there being kind of gang affiliations and essentially illegal conduct, hiding of records, things going on in the LA County Sheriff's Department, and Villanueva essentially just throwing its shade and pretending he need not answer it. Now, Villanueva, what he did is he briefly attended this remote meeting, only really to just hop out and leave before it was his time to testify. Now, this chief of staff had prepared a statement on his behalf, but again, the commission had subpoenaed him and brought him there, yet he did not answer the questions. Now, let's talk about his second man in charge, Murakami, and what he did. So Murakami, well, he was subpoenaed to testify about the civil rights and public integrity detail, a unit that's a unit he oversees that critics have accused of targeting the sheriff's most vocal critics. Now, Murakami indicated on Wednesday that he had an unspecified health issue, and thus he was too busy to attend. So even the first man in command can't be present, but now the second man, all of a sudden, he's got a hiccup and a cough and he can't be there. And so what happened here? Well, the snub is the latest ploy in an increasingly hostile power struggle between Villanueva and the Sheriff's Civilian Oversight Commission. Much of the recent controversy has revolved around the commission's authority to issue subpoenas that compel the sheriff and members of his staff to answer their questions under oath. Villanueva has called the commission's demand for him to do so an abuse of power. Members of the commission, meanwhile, have said his recalcitrance is an attempt to flout the body's oversight powers. And Villanueva said in a statement Wednesday night that the commission exists to offer advice, not interrogate. This is interesting because California State Superior Court said that Villanueva and the LA County Sheriff, well, they need to answer these subpoenas because basically the commission does have authority to essentially push forward with these subpoenas. So, Big Wills, how do you feel about this?
Man, it's kind of funny in the sense that if you've ever come into contact with the law, they say if you don't got nothing to hide, you should talk. Why get a lawyer? Why lawyer up? If you got nothing to hide, come talk to us. You're not in trouble if you didn't do anything wrong. You should be forthcoming. That's what the police always preach to people who they're interrogating, who they're investigating. So I find it quite humorous that now that the LA County Sheriff's Department is under investigation by an outside group, which is important. This isn't, this isn't IA Internal Affairs basically doing a dog and pony show of an investigation. This is an outside, independent civilian group who's trying to hold these guys accountable. I would encourage everybody who's watching this right now to go read Knock LA, their report on the gangs within the LAPD, LA County Sheriff's Department. It was quite shocking, the revelations in there, just the way these guys operate. So yeah, I'm not surprised, but I find it ironic that these police don't want to talk.
Yeah, no, isn't that interesting how all of a sudden they decided to use their right to silence, I guess? And the thing that gets me is that this seems like an entirely lawful subpoena trying to find out if there is gang activity involved and misconduct in the sheriff's department. So you'd think that the officers want to step up, but apparently not. They don't want to really dispel the notion of misconduct. And before we move on quickly, I'll note that settlements and adjudications of claims from the LA County Sheriff's Department, they've cost taxpayers in LA County at least $550 million between 2012 and 2020. So again, I guess misconduct is definitely going on and quite rampant, and it'd be great if Villanueva or someone representing him stood up and really kind of testified otherwise. But let's move on to our third story. We are heading now out to Texas with arguably some good news, so shall we say. So when he's not trying to strip citizens really of their right to vote and also women of their bodily autonomy, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick of Texas, well, he is issuing his own cell phones. Because you remember how back in November 2020, he offered a $25,000 reward for anyone who can identify voter fraud in Texas. Well, he found his winner and he actually issued that first $25,000 award. Let's see the gentleman on the screen here. It's Mr. Eric Frank. He found that there was actually voter fraud going on. And of course, it was a Republican who voted twice. That's right, a Republican in Texas who voted twice. Because if you recall, well, it was the Republican Party and Trump who continued to say that, hey, it's the Democrats engaging in voter fraud. Nope, this one was definitely a Republican. So let's talk about the details of that. So 1 week after the 2020 US presidential election, in which Joe Biden defeated President Donald Trump, the Lieutenant Governor of Texas set a bounty of up to 1 million. Anyone who can find instances of voter fraud in the US. And Frank told the Daily Morning News that he had been told that he received only the minimum bounty because greater rewards were reserved for quote unquote bigger fish. I'm guessing those bigger fishes might start with the name Biden. But Patrick's campaign spokesperson, while he told the Dallas Morning News that only the original tipsters would receive the prize. Frank, however, was the original poll worker who submitted a violation by Ralph Thurman, a 72-year-old Republican man who pleaded guilty in September of this year to voting twice, once under his name and once using the name of his Democratic allied son. And Thurman, this gentleman who's of the Republican Party who voted twice, he received 3 years of probation and is barred from voting for 4 years. Woz, how does this hit you?
You know, we've all heard the term, be careful what you wish for. And this is just a beautiful demonstration of that. It doesn't take long to sort of disentangle or disembody the voter fraud conspiracy or theory. Just pull up the voter turnout numbers in this country. We can't get people to vote once, much less there's gonna be widespread amounts of people just going out and doing extra voting. On behalf of who and for what? So these guys could sit on their butts in Congress and do nothing for the American people. It's just hilarious. It's hilarious the notion that people will be out casting fake votes, or people would be leaving their house, going to different counties. It's like nobody wants to do this the legal way.
Exactly. So why would you think they do it the illegal way? And the thing, really quickly, that really hits me is the injustice of it all. You had this 72-year-old white male voter who voted twice. Yet remember those years ago where you had that black Texas mother, Crystal Mason, and she got a 5-year prison sentence for illegally voting in the 2016 election. She got 5 years. Yet what happened there is that she was on supervised release for tax fraud charges and didn't know she couldn't vote. And then also there's been a Texas justice of the peace named Russ Casey, white man, 5 years probation for voting twice. A white woman in Iowa, 2 years probation. So basically white people are enjoying probation while black people are getting sentenced for voting twice, and there is no voter fraud. But there is the opportunity to see us again, and we'll be right back.
Cenk Uygur is not here today, which means that I will be able to talk during the show.
We'll see. We'll see.
Poor Cenk, under the bus.
My God, if Jesus came back, how much would the Republicans hate him? So now you have to give away all of your possessions to the poor. Steve King would be like, oh, Weezy. Everyone should be lucky enough to have a John Iadarola in their life.
You confused everyone?
Okay, sorry, I thought it was pretty clear.
Take a break now.
You can turn me into Dr. Manhattan as long as I get what Dr. Manhattan's packing, okay? The liberal mom says, Mark Thompson, have you ever thought about doing one of those tapes that soothe people to sleep? Like Mark Thompson reads the phone book. I'd buy it.
If you'll buy it, I'll do it.
D'Amelio writes in, John, you are so thick. I love you. That's what he wrote.
Pork Chop Express writes in and says John Iadarola needs a new jacket.
Whoa.
Those 24-inch pythons are about to burst out of his sleeve.
Gun, baby.
You know, the two people here said that their moms were both in love with you over Beauty and the Beast.
Mm-hmm. That's an improvement. I usually get grandmothers.
Charlie Turk.
No, wait a minute, don't you dare.
Chemical castration when we return from the break.
I hope that, who they choose for the White House isn't just a borderline Klansman. That's all we gotta hope.
That's it, we will settle it.
She's cute. I didn't say that about Laura Ingraham.
Scandal at TYT. Did Anna comment on my tan yet? No, she hasn't.
You're a good boss.
But Anna did say that I come in here today with a fresh mind. That's all I'm about. I'm about a fresh mind.
I can't with you right now. Okay?
She just can't. She can't, but nonetheless, we have to for another 3 hours. I'm back, baby. Let's rip in the Republicans. See, don't miss the live show.
That's great.
Tell people, if you're a member, you get the whole live show whenever you want, because this stuff doesn't go into any of the clips.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Iadarola. This is gonna be a big one.
Meanwhile, in the Arctic, you know where this is going. You watch the Damage Report, the Arctic's on fire. Obviously, why would we be talking about the Arctic except to tell you that it's melting once again? The Republicans aren't that interested in it. I wonder why. Lift out of poverty up to 3.7 million people, including an estimated 1.3 million children. Hashtag save the children? Not if it costs money. I mean, come on.
What's happening? I'm Dr. Rashad Richey, host of Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey. Here's the bottom line. I play no games about policy, period. Too many people's lives are at stake. So here's what I do. I challenge conservative ideology that hinders the growth of this country. I make sure we place our facts in proper context, and I have no problem debating anyone on a position that I have. Progressives have the ideas to change the world, but when you really look at it, progressives have always changed this world for the better. I want you to tune into my new show, Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey, right here on the TYT Network, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time. I'll see you there.
Everything that we've accomplished over the years is because of our members who've allowed us to remain independent of corporate interests and reach 20 million followers. Now is the time to bring as many people into the progressive movement as possible. We're inviting you to be the change and help bring a community-powered progressive change machine to life. Details are at tyt.com/change. If you're a member, thank you. We need you to remain so. If you're one of the thousands of viewers out there who's not a member yet, the time has come for you to join now. We need you more than ever. tyt.com/change.
Thanks for joining us once again. Adrienne Lawrence filling in for Dr. Rashad Richey. And we've got some interesting things for you. Of course, the podcast. Have you checked out Indisputable as a podcast? I want you to go ahead and do that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you do your listening, really. Now, I want you to search for Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey and click follow and rate us with 5 stars. Not 4, but 5. Also, there's a petition. We covered a story here on Indisputable a few days ago about Shantel Arnold and how she was assaulted by a Jefferson Parish, Louisiana police officer right after she was being assaulted by a group of neighborhood boys. Now, the unidentified police officer who we just identified as Mr. Alvarado, well, he's under investigation, and we'd like you to consider signing a petition. Please use your voice. Our goal is 10,000 signatures, calling on the Jefferson Parish, Louisiana sheriff, that's Joseph P. Lopinto III, to fire the unarmed officer who has been involved in now 9 federal civil rights lawsuits. This brutal attack would never be allowed in any place of work, and it must definitely be addressed. It also most definitely should not be tolerated in our police department. Sign the petition today for Shantel Arnold at tyt.com petitions. And also coming up next, we have Galaxy Brain with Ben Carollo. That's after Indisputable. Go to twitch.tv/TYT to check out Galaxy Brain with Ben Carollo. Watch every Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. Also, we want to remind you, definitely hit that tweet at Indisputable TYT to let us know your thoughts so we can share your comments. And let's go ahead and share a few of the listeners' comments here. TYT members at tyt.com, they say, LOL, Adrienne, you're no longer have to explain yourself. We know well and admire and respect you. Thank you, Mickey C, the silver-haired dragon, much appreciated. I'm glad y'all can recognize my friendly face. Also, again, keep spreading the word. The folks here, we are only at 5,200 signatures. That's Colorado Blue Blazer Regular talking about that petition to fire the police officer who assaulted Shantel Arnold. Please go to tyt.com/petitions and contribute, uplift your voice. Also, Triadora says, so true, Woz. It's always, if you didn't do nothing wrong, then talk to us. But now that the tides have turned, homeboy has a cough, and the other one couldn't be bothered to finish the Zoom meeting he came into. Absolutely, LA County Sheriff, they really got to get it together. Let's check out YouTube Super Chat for Belzilla. If the video was selectively edited, then release the full video. ACAB, Adrienne, you're looking lovely as usual. Was you still fine, boo boo? Kiss me. There's some love there. You got some fans. Thank you. I appreciate it myself. All right. So for Burrow, I didn't catch where the doc said he would be out, but Adrienne is a pleasant surprise. I love when she's on. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, the doc has a little bit of a cough. Again, he's nursing some NyQuil. So send him your best wishes, and there's a good chance he will be back on Monday. Also, Twitch, let's get those comments in. Peachy Pax says, as horrible as some of the stories are going to be, I'm guessing it makes my day to have my girl crush hosting. Love, Adrienne. Thank you. Kentucky AP PDX says, I wish Adrienne had time for her own TYT show. Hey. And Alyssa Gale, I love all your TYT guest hosts, but she warms my heart. I just love her so much. Oh my God, I love all of the amazing love from you guys. Thank you so much. And please continue to watch. We'll be right back.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday?
You're still free. Back off! I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
I will.
Nicole, so I can close my door.
Except for the fact
Miss,
that you didn't.
I'm going to call the police. You're assaulting me. Please get away from me. I don't want anything to do with you.
I'm assaulting you?
You're not letting me leave.
And this is assaulting you?
You're not letting me leave. So you're stopping me from leaving.
Call the police.
Okay, I will. Please move away from me. Please get away from me. I didn't do anything to you.
I was trying to have a conversation.
I don't want to have a conversation with you. I don't know you. You're so close to me with COVID. You don't have a mask on. It's insane. Can you please step away from me? Get away from me.
So you're trying to tell me
I'm just trying to tell you I'm trying to close my door.
And I was trying to tell you you're pulling my you're hitting me.
Because you're stopping me.
Yes, because I need you to hear.
Please back away from me.
I need you to hear some words.
This is insane.
I will back up here, but you need to listen to me.
You're not.
If you're that concerned,
Miss, I'm concerned about you stopping me from leaving. That's what I'm concerned with. I'm going to go into the store and let them know that you're stopping me. You can't stop me.
I'm concerned with you.
And you're going to get charged with assault.
Oh, I wish a Karen would. And I would definitely like to know that woman's explanation for why she felt it was her job to interfere with that delivery person. According to the individual who posted it, that delivery person parked where he was supposed to as the store directed him, but she felt that she didn't like the way he parked, and thus she had to interfere with him and to check him and spend her time engaging in absolute Karenicity and just nonsense behavior. Wills, what do you think about this?
It's tough because, the New Yorker in me, we don't really abide by this type of tomfoolery. This lady, I would have let her know about herself very quickly, and my door would have been closed. Maybe a finger would have got caught in between. Who knows? But I'm closing my door and I'm getting the hell up out of there. Shouts to that brother for exhibiting such an amazing amount of patience and just lady, let me get out of here. It would have been a different story for me. I would have been yelling at this woman, calling her all kinds of crazy, trifling, all of this. And it would have been a problem for her. This guy was nice to her, fortunately for her.
Yeah, he seemed to be very nice to her. But one thing he definitely did that I love as an attorney is he started recording it, because these people who get up in your face and get physical with you, they're the first people to lie when the cops show up or when you in court. So you always have to protect your person, your peace, and your purse, because these Karens out here in these streets, they do not tell the truth and they do not exercise any form of common sense. And that Karen there, I really wish she would, because she really gonna get her lesson one day. I definitely think so.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, it's just incredible how people can operate this way with this sense of entitlement, this sense of superiority. And I know we're not supposed to espouse on behalf of violence, but yeah, she might have. We can go to the next one.
Yeah, let's go ahead and go to the next story before we get ourselves in some trouble. Let's hand over to the land of Lincoln. This is at Naperville High School, and it's a follow-up to a story you may have seen in the media. There, where a high school student, he had posted a Craigslist ad for a fellow student with his picture attached, advertising a slave for sale. That's right, this white student was marketing the sale of his classmate who is Black as a slave. And of course, he had to throw in that racial slur. Now we have some progress on that case because that young man has now been subject to sentencing for what he did. Now, what we have from the Chicago Tribune is that on November 14th, the student allegedly took a photo of a black classmate, posted it online with the caption, "Slave for sale." The post included a racial slur, as I mentioned. Naperville police said they began investigating the matter when they learned of it 4 days after the posting. Now, the mother of the targeted student, and let's go ahead and put her photo up here, Mrs. Tamara Wallace, well, she said that the two students, the white young man and the black young man, were once close friends, and that her son was taunted after that ad was placed. And this is also what the Chicago Tribune said, that the mother had said that her 14-year-old would walk through the halls of Naperville Central last week, and the fellow students laughed at him and told him, "I'll buy you for $1." He didn't know what was going on, Wallace said. He was the butt of jokes for days. The student, a juvenile whose name has not been released, was sentenced to 2 years probation and 100 hours of community service. The prosecutor's office said he had pleaded guilty on September 1 to 2 counts of felony hate crime and 1 count of misdemeanor disorderly conduct. Now, this is important to also bear in mind that this area of Naperville, apparently it is a wealthy suburb outside of Chicago. And in that school district there, that there are less than 4% Black students in that entire school district, over 70% white. So this young man was definitely in the minority here, alone. And the fact is that this Naperville school district has faced so many issues in the past of instances of racism. They hit the national news for it not too long ago. And I'm talking about things like elementary school kids who are Black being associated with being animals. But this is a problem what the school district has, and also the administration, once this story about the slave sale gained some national attention, well, the administrators apologized and said they knew this problem persisted for years, didn't handle things well before, and needed to do better. So these people knew, and yet they did not address the problem before this issue took place. And this man had to suffer, and now, or I should say this boy had to suffer, and now we have another young man who is on probation. Willis, what do you think?
Fortunately for us, Adrienne, we were emancipated like about 100-something, 50-something years ago. So we don't have to worry about being auctioned off as slaves anymore. But seriously, not even to be glib here, I would just hope that the young man who was transgressed against would, keep his head up and understand that these people are clowns. They're hurt themselves. They're not gonna get very far in life with this level of narrow-mindedness and ignorance, right? Like that type of hate, that type of energy doesn't even need to be entertained. I'm glad the authorities, the people who should be protecting this young guy, stepped in and at least levied some type of punishment so there's an accountability for this disgusting type of behavior. But I just think about the young man in the situation, and I would hope that he would understand this is nonsense, stupidity. No young little dumb white boy could tell him what his self-worth is or his value is. So that's all that I would hope out of all of this.
Yeah, absolutely. The fact that this kid has to go through the halls and is supposed to be in an educational institution where essentially teachers, and I'm guessing the parents around the area, they're really compounding the racism. They are reinforcing this messaging. They are not correcting these kids when they essentially get out of pocket with their racism. And the thing is that young man, it makes me think about, and all the other Black kids, even though there are few and far between there, how it impacts their ability to learn and to essentially grow up to be productive members of society. Because as I'm sure you and I know, definitely, the fact is that racism is extremely distracting, especially when you are few and far between and no one's there to stand up for you, and you're scared, and also you're isolated.
Yeah, in society, especially here in America, we're generally obviously the minority whenever we show up to places, right? Like we're 13% of the population at large, and you go to other areas, like you did the demographics of this place. This is 4% of the populace is Black. So these are the kind of things that you're generally gonna run into. And again, I would just hope that he sticks close to the people who actually care for him. who would protect him and who actually care about him. This is one kid, one stupid incident. Life definitely goes on. I just really hope that it's been impressed upon the little white boy that this is unacceptable.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that he's a juvenile, I'm sure whatever records are going to be sealed and it won't necessarily hurt him in the future. But still, the thing is, it was absolutely entirely unnecessary. Racism is something that's learned. So as far as I'm concerned, this is on his family. But then we look at the instances that have happened in that area, what's not been done. It's just promulgating institutional racism. And the good thing is that after this was called out and gained national media attention several months ago, in terms of the initial incident happening, that the school actually had made the effort to teach quote unquote critical race theory, basically just to do more diversity conversations, educations, and training. But the thing is, if you still leave people in power there who just didn't get it to begin with or did not care, it's really, what are you doing? Like, what do you have to gain there? I really don't know.
Also, sometimes, Adrienne, and I hate to sound like a broken record, sometimes you gotta knuckle up. Sometimes you just gotta punch somebody in the mouth when they get out of pocket and disrespect you. That's just, I know that's old school and not progressive of me, but I truly believe that, especially at a young age. I feel like a lot of times you meet people out in this world who feel like they could talk to you any type of way, behave any type of way. And I always think to myself, yeah, that person's never been punched in the face before. Because if you have, there's a certain level of humility that comes with that. And so, yeah, I think this dude needs to get punched in his face.
That whole Mike Tyson, until you get knocked in the mouth kind of thing?
Come on now.
No, okay, so the lawyer in me, not the street in me, but the lawyer in me says that violence is not the answer. But the lawyer in me also says, just make self-defense your weapon. That means let them take a swipe, shot, lunge first, and then you can do whatever you need to essentially do that humility control that you need to do. But essentially put yourself in a position where you are responding and you do not look like you are initiating the assault. That is the best advice I can give, but I will go ahead and reiterate again that violence is not the answer, but sometimes it can be a little bit helpful. But thank you so much for sharing that. We're gonna go ahead and go to break. We'll see you soon.
You know what the progressive movement needs? It needs a little energy, a little pizzazz, maybe a little caffeine. Oh, coffee. But what if it was Too Strong Coffee? Yes, new, toostrongcoffee.com/TYT. Look, this helps progressive causes. It's also organic and fair trade, so you've got peace of mind that it was done right, and it happens to taste great. So check it out right now at toostrongcoffee.com/TYT.
That 300 million is a pretty good number, Well, that's the size of the US population. You know what our next target is? The size of the entire world. We just crossed 5 billion views on YouTube.
I mean, imagine 10 years ago thinking one day. We looked at you like, are you nuts?
Young Turks has just passed another milestone. 15 billion views. Damn. All right, lots of comments. You guys are the best.
I'm gonna read a few comments from our members.
Mr. Methuselah says on YouTube, super chat, thanks for all the important work you do for TYT for the movement.
Do you know who had the first super chat when I got back from vacation? You won't be surprised to find out. Rob Shively. What do you know? Rob says, rejoice, for Dragon Daddy has returned.
This question sent to us by Izzy Sanchez Jr. Is it me or is Meghan McCain talking as fast as Ben Shapiro? Is that the way the right tries to look smart and intellectual? Well, yes.
Michael Nathan writes it on Twitter. Did Anna choose Cenk's outfit today? I'm sure it wasn't Cenk himself. Man Bun Jenkins Skinny Jeans says, so now Anna has pointed out, okay, that's just handled.
T. Joyce, 1971, saying Donald Trump is good at pulling out of things, NAFTA, the Iran deal, NATO. It's just too bad Fred Trump didn't.
All right, let me do a little quick plug here. It's not even a plug, I'm bragging, okay? I'm bragging, watch me. We have a channel on YouTube, a whole channel devoted just to the Young Turks. It's badass, right? Wow, man.
I can see the void.
You guys are rock stars.
Unbelievable. Senator Sanders, welcome to Rebel Headquarters. Man, you guys are amazing. We gave you what you wanted. Okay. Speaking of shirts.
I have a surprise.
You reached a lot of people. You are the Young Turks. And we have spread that progressive message wide and far. Let's keep it going.
Here's what we do. We go beyond the headline. We are willing to engage in transparent conversations with those who do not think like me. We also make sure that you know what's happening not only nationally, but in your local area. Make sure you tune in to Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, Monday through Friday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time.
Cool news, shoptyt.com now has books. There's a whole bunch of books there. You're gonna be shocked to find out that they're largely progressive. Of course! Ryan Grimm's book, We've Got People, is there. It's fantastic. It's a story from Jesse Jackson to Bernie Sanders to AOC that explains the progressive movement probably better than any book I've ever read. Speaking of awesome books, my dad's got a book out called The Original Young Turk, where he goes from the poorest olive farmer you ever met in your life to living the American dream.
Hey, it's TYT Indisputable. Adrienne Lawrence back at you with the famous Woz, and we're excited to join you. And also excited for you to hit us up at Indisputable TYT on all of our platforms, as well as check us up at youtube.com/Indisputable TYT. Also, put us in your ears, listen to the podcast. Go ahead and do that. You can do it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcast, or wherever you really want to listen to your podcast. Doesn't matter. Search for Indisputable with TYT with Dr. Rashad Ritchie and click follow. Give us those 5 stars. We deserve them. Also, as we mentioned, there's a petition to hold accountable Deputy Alvarado of the Jefferson Parish, Louisiana Police Department. He's that individual who dragged Shantel Arnold by her hair, and who was also involved in those 9 federal lawsuits that involved civil rights violations. Our goal is 10,000 signatures, calling on the Jefferson Parish, Louisiana Sheriff, Joseph P. Lopito III, to fire the unnamed officer, whose name has now been identified. We talked about it earlier on the show. This brutal attack never would have been allowed in the first place, and it definitely shouldn't be tolerated. Sign the petition today for Shantel Arnold at tyt.com/petitions. Also, coming up next, after Indisputable, go to tyt.tv/TYT to check out Galaxy Brain with Ben Carollo. Watch every Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. And let's go ahead and get some thoughts from you all. Definitely appreciate you watching today as I fill in Dr. Ritchie's absence. First up, TYT members on tyt.com. It's texting. Well, I'm with Woz, but no finger problems. I just push her on her butt in the parking lot and drive off. Yeah, that was in response to that Karen issue. I think there are people who would.
There's grass there, Adrienne. There's grass and dirt. She wouldn't hurt or get scraped up. She would just have some dirt or mud on her butt, and she could just wipe it off and keep it pushing with her day.
You know what? I got no comment. No comment. But I don't do criminal work. I don't represent people. I'm good. And we have Mickey C, the silver-haired dragon. Blatant racism in our school, no problem. Calling the public's attention to it, big problem. So after years of permitting this hate, I guess we have to act now. Meanwhile, all those children who suffered for all those years have internalized that abuse. Absolutely. You have kids who cannot learn. Also, all they learned was essentially to suffer oppression. That's not what educational institutions are supposed to be. It's a joke. Super 2, Yo's YouTube super chat. I love Getting those words together, fun. Kathy Harvey, $2. I hope the doc feels better soon. Moon Dragon for the $5. I love it. Any word on whether they're seeking Chantel's other attackers? That's a really good question. We do not know at this time, but let's hope that they are. And D Rocky for the $9.99. Love it. The good old boys in my West Virginia high school used to wear camouflage on Fridays to represent their racism and homophobia, to intimidate me and others. School did nothing. I feel for that young man. I'm so sorry you had that experience, and I hope those individuals have gotten a check on their hate. And we have Gucci Mane. That's the problem, that Karen probably hasn't worked a day in her life. That's why she feels so damn entitled to anything. Yeah, definitely a problem. Also, Ricardo the Lion, where are the parents here talking about the Naperville school? Isn't that what the racists say about everyone else? Absolutely, and let's hear about Twitch. We have Alejandra Maldonado Domexia, forgive me if I butchered that. You're hitting me, yeah, that happens. That's what happens when you put your limbs in between a closing door, you dummy. Yeah, I definitely think she missed out on that. And also Lefta Puna. If it's anything like my experience growing up in mostly white schools, the teachers are just as racist as the kids. Yeah, that I've seen that before, and I also kind of grew up in that kind of environment, so it's unfortunate. But just as a reminder, please tweet us at IndisputableTYT and tag #Indisputable so that your tweets and comments can be read on air. Now let's go ahead and move on to our next story. And this one comes to us out of North Carolina. Have you ever been a part of a, maybe organization that has racist ties? Well, 2 representatives out there in North Carolina. Well, there was a leaked report and we happened to find out more information about what they're up to. These North Carolina's representatives, Mike Clampett is a Republican from Bryson City, and Keith Kidwell, Republican from coastal Beaufort County. Well, they are both listed as members of the Oath Keepers. These 2 state lawmakers are being tied to that right-wing militia group after the membership roster was leaked. And these are the individuals who, they brought the fun on January 6th at the US Capitol. That's what the Oath Keepers are tied to. And now we can tie it to these lawmakers as well. Now, the Charlotte Observer, the information and insight they provided us with is that Representative Kidwell did not comment on the inclusion of his name on the roster, but said he doesn't think the information should be in the public domain. Clampett stands by his Oath Keepers affiliation. Clampett appears to be a Confederate sympathizer who has previously supported legislation to repeal the portion of the state's constitution that prohibits secession. Kidwell also serves as chairman of the newly reorganized House Freedom Caucus, which has propagated theories of voter fraud in the 2020 election. During the 2021-22 session, Kidwell has introduced legislation such as a bill to allow concealed carry by elected officials at the legislature, a bill to allow certain faculty and school staff to carry weapons on school grounds, and a bill called the Second Amendment Preservation Act. Now, the Oath Keepers' revelations are one piece of a larger, more worrisome trend, wrote the Charlotte Observer. In addition to Clampett and Kidwell, ProPublica's analysis identified 46 other state and local government officials on the Oath Keepers roster. Can you believe this, Was?
I can. It's part of a slow and graduate build of the a rebuild of the Republican Party in the image and likeness of what used to be called the crazy fringe, the lunatic fringe. I'm old enough to remember when these people were just that. They were on the outskirts. They were seen as others. Of course, Republican lawmakers would, play footsie, do a nod and a wink with some dog whistles to acknowledge them. But these people had no actual positioning when it came to being able to pull the levers of power. Now, in 2021, elected lawmakers are on the damn member rosters, right? So we've gone from just a dog and whistle of welfare queens and they're coming for our freedoms and blah, blah, blah. And you could say the thing that would get their, get their juices flowing a little bit, to now like these guys are literally members of these lunatic, because that's what they are. They're lunatic organizations. And these people actually now are the weather vane of the party. They take the temperature and decide what direction the party should be going. It's no longer that they could just throw out country club people like Mitt Romney, like the Jeb Bushes, and be like, all right, we're respectable Republicans. We get it, crazies. You're the animating energy of what we do around here, but we're the people that are in charge here. That's no longer the case. The fringe is taking over, and they dominate the party now. This doesn't surprise me in the least bit.
No, and I find it interesting how one man said he didn't want it in the public domain and the other one stood by it. It's like, if you're gonna bother being a part of these racist and old school conservative organizations, at least say it with your chest. Like, get out here, exactly, own it, and don't try to pretend to be something else. But then again, we know that that's one of kind of the key tenets of modern day white supremacy, is essentially to be cloaked, to have that hood over your face so people can identify it. But nowadays, I just think you should just be out and about and be who you are, which is unfortunate because we have to endure these people, but at least we can identify them. So best of luck to those lawmakers, we good. Now let's go ahead and move over to our next story, which is unfortunate because it involves a death of a man and really the life of a Karen. So here we had this woman named Adrienne Harris, and her white neighbors called the police on her during her father's funeral, claiming that her limousine was parked in front of their home. Check out this video.
Oh, get away. Hey. Why would you guys even do that? Y'all have no respect for nobody. Why would you
listen, y'all. Okay, so I'm recording. They're saying that we're in front of their house. Hold on. They saying we're in front of their house. It's my daddy's funeral. And they're over here recording us and arguing with us. And he do this all the time. All the time they do this. As y'all can see, we are not in front of their house. It's my daddy's funeral today, and this is what they doing. Like, come on now. And I called and told my landlord it was my daddy's funeral. Okay. So come on, go. As y'all see, we are not in front of their house. Y'all, they pick at me all the time. Like, literally, they pick at me all the time. Look at this. I want y'all to see we are not blocking no drive.
You don't need to aggravate.
Like, this is ridiculous. And I make sure I always record, and I don't have nothing parked in front of nothing, because I know how they are. Come on, y'all, let's go. Let's go, y'all. Get in the car, please. Come on.
Everybody get in the car.
I got the video. I don't care. Y'all see, this is not blocking their driveway at all. This is just some Karen racist. Totally racist.
As Adrienne Harris said, totally racist. This occurred in Las Vegas just earlier this week. And I really feel her because, hey, it was not blocking their driveway, and yet they resorted to it by calling the police. And this is what the Daily Mail reported about this incident. They said, in addition to calling the police, her neighbors text her landlord, telling them that when the man of the couple took trash outside, 15 to 20 attacked him, and that those people were outside their house threatening him. The police, according to Harris, arrived at the house after the family had left for the funeral. The Las Vegas Police Department did not confirm whether an officer had been dispatched to the neighborhood. Now, what Harris also told the Daily Mail should be noted. She said, I'm at my father's funeral for the first 45 minutes to an hour. My landlord is texting me about this, and I have to tell her I am literally at my father's funeral burying my dad. She said, can this wait? I've been living here for 4 years, and for the last 4 years, this is how they treated us. Talking about the neighbors there. They've called the police on my kids, my brother. She had the police come to my house numerous times. She writes numerous letters to my landlord. That definitely sounds like nothing but instances of Karenism. That sounds like, cold-hearted racism. Just trying to essentially instigate a situation where this woman or her family members get arrested or evicted when, based on what we've heard so far, it's not that they're doing anything that it's illegal or disturbing the neighbors whatsoever. Woz, what does this really say to you?
I would encourage this young woman to keep paying your rent on time, keep living your life. These people are obviously desperate, they're angry. but they're not gonna get anywhere with this nonsense. It's just, what are you gonna do about miserable people? There's nothing you can really do about it. The cops obviously by now understand that these people are ridiculous and just feel a way about having black neighbors. And if they don't like it, they can move. Sell your crib, or if you're renting, go find another place to live and get the hell out of there. If you can't live in harmony with your neighbors, you should go. We got a lot of wilderness in this country. You could go out to the woods and be away from civilization if that's what you so please.
Yeah, you would think that they kind of would have gotten the message that they don't have to live there. They can take their hate and go somewhere else, but essentially harassing a neighbor and using law enforcement to try to get that done, it's just absolute shenanigans, and it's completely and totally unnecessary. And so I think, what advice, if you were Ms. Harris, what would you do next?
I mean, I know what I would be doing. I would just keep living, keep doing what I do. I'd probably be louder than necessary, probably turn my music up more than I needed to. I'd probably have more parties than I normally would. I'd probably be that neighbor. Yeah, all kinds of barbecuing going on, playing all types of Earth, Wind, and Fire. Yeah, I'd be getting them mad, Adrienne.
I completely respect that. That's right. Yep. I have, the meat going, backyard parties, the whole deal. Yeah, because it definitely seems like they're just gonna have an issue with just the sheer existence of Ms. Harris and her family. So they should continue to exist to the fullest extent. And also, it really, I didn't miss the kind of thought that they called the police and said that they were attacked by about 15 or 20 of them, as though the Harris family were some kind of pack of animals. And also the thought attack, it's these coded words that are often used that really describe and depict us as animalistic.
But it's to be expected at this point. She said she's lived there for 4 years, so at a certain point, you kind of know the playbook with these people. And the police aren't gonna go for it, so which is nice. But yeah, there's nothing you could do about deeply unhappy, sick, deranged people. I would hope that these people could get some help, maybe seek some therapy. Somebody step in and help them, be better at life. But there's nothing that this young woman could do to change the ridiculous ways of these people. She just gotta live her life and understand that sometimes there are people who are beyond repair.
Yep, and definitely we know too many of those. Thank you so much for joining us, Woz. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, you are awesome. And where can you be found? Please tell our viewers.
Yeah, I'm Big Woz on every single social media network. So that's BIGWOS on every single social. Of course, you can read me at theringer.com, listen to my podcast about the NBA as well as TV. And I do a political podcast called Woke Bros with fellow TYT contributor Nando Vila. We talk about lefty issues and politics. So check us out.
That is awesome, and I have to apologize. I think several times I called you Woz instead of Woz. I am.
What's so funny about that, Adrienne?
Yes.
Woz is actually the Yankee/white way to say it. Woz is actually the ethnic way to say it. That's how my parents, my family says it. So you're actually saying it the right way. It's just me. I'm an appeaser, so I just say it the way the white people are most comfortable with.
That's
you
perfect.
Actually did it right.
Okay, cool. Well, that makes me feel better. You have to forgive me. It's the first time I put on a jacket post-COVID. It's a little tight and I'm sweating like hell. It's a tough times, these first world problems. But thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Of course, see you next time.
All right, we'll be back shortly.
I'll predict right here for you, Chris. I think Donald Trump will leave office before his term is up. He'll be humiliated, embarrassed, and I know him. He's not gonna wanna lose, and he's gonna run for the hills.
You got that bet all day long.
Okay, let's get after it. Now, so look, Jake has made some good predictions, and this is in good fun. I could not disagree more.
There's a little bromance between the two of them. You got that bet all day long, Janky, you. Oh, you stop. In the meantime, let's call him out on the damage.
But
I just got a Roku set. Did basically a little bit of channel surfing, and I was like, there we are.
Yeah.
There we are. And then I turned it on, and it was John and Brett on Damage Report making fun of me.
Oh no.
So you are so busted. I even took a picture of it, okay? They're talking about my predictions. I got a new prediction for you, John Idarola.
You're doing a show that's blowing the doors off everybody.
Young Turks is the largest online news network, not a big deal. We're gonna rock the boat. We're gonna be counter-establishment. We're gonna tell people the truth to the best of our abilities. We're so sick of this corruption. We're not the robots on TV. I actually care about the news. Guilty, I care. Fourth day on Occupy Wall Street. Last night we launched Wolfpack. It's us pushing our ideas out there, trying to help the country in every way that we can, trying to make this place just a little bit better. Reporting from the Hillary-Bernie debate, I gotta be honest, you know what we do, we cover it for real. For us, this system isn't working. Free and fair elections.
And when he told the cops that day, when they came to drag her away, and he said, if you're gonna chain her, you're gonna chain me. If you're gonna arrest her, you're gonna arrest me.
At TYT, our vision is to be the leading global brand in news and talk by serving the audience with authentic commentary and analysis and to become the digital campfire for the world. And we plan to accomplish that by serving the audience with uniquely authentic commentary and analysis. Put another way, we seek to make TYT into the digital campfire for the world. Today, the traditional mainstream media, along with the government and many of our cherished institutions, have unfortunately been captured by corporate interests. Audiences increasingly sense that they're not getting the whole story or even the truth from once trusted outlets, whether it's broadcast and cable TV news networks or national newspapers and magazines. Instead, the audience is turning to alternative news sources online, the TYT network preeminent among them. Unlike our competitors in the traditional media, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, to defense contractors, to Wall Street, or to big pharma. And unlike conservative sites online, we're not bankrolled by billionaires looking to push their right-wing propaganda. We only answer to our audience, and for nearly 2 decades, we've delivered by producing honest, timely, and insightful perspectives on the day's news without fear or favor or concern for whose toes we might step on or which powerful elites we might offend.
Hi, I'm Bartholomew Joseph Kyle. I do audio for the main show, The Young Turks. I also do audio for Post Game. I started in 2006. I met Cenk Uygur at the Iraq for Sale screening that was directed by Robert Greenwald. And watching that, I want to figure out a way to be part of something that's genuine and authentic.
Welcome back, it's Adrienne Lawrence, and this is TYT's Indisputable. I'm in for Dr. Rashad Ritchie. And after the show today, you are going to have an exciting treat. We're talking about Galaxy Brain with Ben Carollo. That will be at twitch.tv/TYT, and you can watch Galaxy Brain every Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. Also, let's check out some of your comments out there. I got a shout out for Heather M. Haley. She is defending her dissertation today from 10:30 to 12:30 Central Time. And so I am sending you a good luck and all the best. I'm confident that you are gonna knock them off their socks. All right, so YouTube super chat. James Joseph says, love your honesty, Lawrence. Much appreciated, James. Nicole Purple, exactly. The neighbors knew what was going on, but they're just being disrespectful. Absolutely, those neighbors out in Las Vegas, they got a problem and they need to be the ones to move. So Hopefully someone will help them with that effort. At Twitch, Kedge Dragon. The Oath Keepers are one of the really dangerous organizations, unlike the frat boy rejects, Proud Boys. All right, you said it, I didn't, but I know they all got issues, that's for sure. Lieutenant L. Mac MGC. It's not up to the black family to adapt to the white neighborhoods or the white neighbors, and harassment's not okay. It is a form of bullying, and what you need to be is the neighbor who keeps records and sues in civil court. Absolutely, that's right, take it to the courts because it's best not to get involved. Throwing hands often doesn't have great consequences, whether it's self-defense or not. Also, just as a reminder, please remember to tweet Indisputable and tag hashtag Indisputable TYT so that we can read your comments. Also, definitely hit us up at Indisputable TYT across all platforms and check out our YouTube page at youtube.com/Indisputable TYT. And up next, we have a replay of Dr. Richey debating Corianne Clark, co-defender of Free Press Fail. So please enjoy that, and I'll see you again.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the bullpen. In the bullpen today, we have Corianne Clark, co-founder of freepressfail.com. We're going to talk about the January 6th insurrection and maybe get into COVID-19, vaccination, mask, etc. Ms. Clark, thank you for being on the show. Welcome to Indisputable.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I don't want to presume what you believe or know or think about the insurrection on January 6th. So give us some of your thoughts as it relates to what happened on that day at the US Capitol.
I think the most disappointing thing about January 6th is what a distraction it has been to the political conversation lately. I won't condone any activity. I wasn't invited to that insurrection, so can't say anything about it myself. If it was the big party they keep claiming it was, I'm surprised I didn't hear about it because it wasn't very well planned. But now we can't talk about anything else, it seems.
Well, Ms. Clark, my producers told you that you would be talking about the January 6th insurrection, so you're going to talk about it on my show because that was our agreement. So once again, I will pose the question to you. What are your thoughts about the January 6th insurrection against the United States Capitol?
I don't really think it was an insurrection.
What do you think it was?
I think it was a rowdy crowd of unorganized people making a big scene. And it's unfortunate that they did that because I do think it is very distracting from a lot of conversations that would have happened on that day had it not taken place.
So I agree with you. I don't think it was an insurrection. I think it was a terrorist attack. Do you disagree with me on that notion?
Yes.
What's your definition of terrorism?
I would say any event meant to cause complete terror. If you are in terror of a 65-year-old woman carrying an American flag inside the Capitol, then you have a very loose definition of terror, I guess. It's not really about defining terrorism, but really about defining terror.
Ma'am, what you just said, Ms. Clark, in all due respect, what you just said is a complete lie. Complete lie.
The definition of terrorism is a lie?
Not only your definition of terrorism, but your summary of what happened. A 65-year-old woman walking into the US Capitol with a flag is not what happened on January 6th. Let me first correct you on the definition of terrorism. The definition of terrorism, this is the statutory definition, says a person who uses unlawful violence or intimidation, especially against civilians, in pursuit of political aims. That is what the definition of terrorism is. Another working definition of terrorism is unlawfully using violence and intimidation in pursuit of a political goal. How is it that the acts of criminality, we're talking about trespass, we're talking about physical assault, we're talking about actual terroristic threats, to result or conclude in overturning an election result, which is a political goal? How can you say that the act of terrorism does not apply to what they did on January 6th, based on the definition of terrorism?
They weren't seeking a political goal. As I said, I do believe they were an unorganized mob that got a little out of hand. They had no political goal.
That's not true. They said they had a political goal. They shouted their political goal during that insurrection, during that terrorist attack. And the 615 plus individuals who have been arrested said that their political goal was to stop the certification process of the Electoral College.
There was no way that they were going to stop the vote. I don't think anyone intended to do that. But since you mentioned the people that were arrested,
does not
really
mean
talk about the conditions.
Ma'am, there's a difference between your agenda
because if you think and what you actually can accomplish. Terrorism. You think that these people committed terrorism? Why haven't the police charged them with such a crime? Because they're sitting in prison and they have not been charged with insurrection and they have not been charged with terrorism. So it's not me saying it's not terrorism. It's the United States government. It's the DC police. These people have not been charged with terrorism.
Okay. Let me
so
ask you a question.
Is that my fault? Because my definition of terrorism is wrong? Or do you think now that the DC police don't know what terrorism is?
Let me answer your question. And I'm glad you posed it. I'm a free-thinking, independent individual. I'm able to call balls, balls, and strikes, strikes. The reality is, if those same individuals would have had the last name Muhammad that rushed that Capitol and did all of that criminality, you will call this terrorism. If they would have been black, all of those individuals rushed that Capitol, if they would have been members of Black Lives Matter, you right now on my show will call that terrorism. The reason why you don't call it terrorism is the same damn reason why the authorities have not charged them with terrorism. It is because their white skin gives them a benefit of the doubt that if they were of a different complexion or if they had a background as being Muslim, they would not have received that benefit of the doubt. You know, and I know, what I just said is 100% true.
You know that you can define me as racist and also the DC police are racist and the definition of terrorism is somehow racist.
Ma'am, the definition of terrorism stands. The definition of terrorism is what it is.
It is not what it is. You are assuming a lot. You don't know me at all.
Okay, let me ask you this question, Ms. Clark. Let me ask you this question.
No, let me ask you, do you think the DC police are racist?
Let me ask you this question, Ms. Clark.
All of the police in DC are racist?
The institutions are based. Ma'am, I'm going to answer your question.
The black men that serve on the DC police, they are racist.
The institutions that we're talking about have institutional racism and systemic racism codified inside of them. But let me ask you this question very clearly.
The definition of racism can only be now dependent on skin color. You didn't read that in your first definition.
Let me pose this question to you because I don't want to get sidetracked on the conversation. Do you believe that if the individuals who rushed the Capitol committed acts of crime, if they would have been Muslim, would you then call them terrorists? Or would you just say they were in fact simply a rowdy group?
If the exact same circumstances occurred on January 6th, regardless of color, I would not say that that was terrorism.
Why?
Because it wasn't. They were an unorganized crowd. They had no goals. They had no organization.
That's contrary to the facts. The facts do dictate that they did have a goal to stop the certification of the Electoral College. Even
so then would you say it was a failed terrorist attack? Because they certainly didn't do that.
Failed terrorist attack, ma'am. As a matter of fact, most terrorist attacks are failed attacks across the planet.
Usually when we refer to something as a terrorist attack, we do consider it something that accomplished
madam, you do
goal.
Understand that
a failed terrorist attack is a failed terrorist attack, and we refer to it.
So you agree it's a failed terrorist attack, correct?
If you think, by your definition, you think it's a failed terrorist attack. I do not think it was a terrorist attack.
So you think the goal of overthrowing the election, since that was not met, it is not a terrorist attack, or do you think they failed in their act of terrorism?
That wasn't their goal. That's what you said.
What was their goal?
They had no goal. I said that. They were
none of them had a goal whatsoever. Even though they said they had a goal, even though people who have been arrested said this was our goal, you're telling me that they're lying.
And they clearly had not a good enough goal to be arrested for the crime that you say they committed.
You know, it's quite interesting that you give them a complete pass.
Yeah, they're sitting in jail, not being charged with a crime. I think that somebody needs to answer for that. How can you sit in jail and not charge people with a crime?
Okay, wait a minute. You said something new here. They're sitting in jail, not being charged with a crime. Explain that to me.
What is there to explain? There are people who were arrested on January 6th who have not been charged with insurrection. They have not been charged with terrorism, and they have not.
But they have been charged with crimes, madam. You just said they are sitting in jail and have not been charged with a crime. That was your exact quote.
Which crimes have they been charged with? Can you tell me? Because I've been looking, I can't find it.
Well, let me read them to you. Give me a second. They've been charged with, some have been charged with criminal trespass, terroristic threats, utilizing a dangerous weapon, assault on federal police officers. That's just to name a few. You didn't know this?
The families of the people who have been arrested have not been informed of those charges. Neither have their lawyer.
These individuals have been charged with these crimes.
Maybe you should call them. You should let them know because their lawyers are trying to figure that out.
You can tell them to Google it just like I did, madam. It's right in front of you. You can go to FBI.gov and read the docket. What are you talking about?
Yeah, well, I'll let them know that you have it all figured out. Google's got it for you because the DC police do not.
FBI.gov, they have it on their site.
The FBI charged them with crimes that their lawyers have not been made aware of. That seems like a miscarriage of justice.
Ma'am, do you know how many people have been charged? Do you know how many people have been arrested in connection to the terrorist attack? Are you aware?
I know there are at least 6 in prison and they have not been charged with terrorism or insurrection.
Ma'am, this is a simple question. How many people have been arrested in connection to the terrorist attack or the insurrection of the US Capitol?
I gave you an answer. There's at least 6 people in jail who have not been charged for insurrection or terrorism.
Okay. So there are over 600 people that have been charged. When you look at the charges that they have received, there are over 1,800 actual charges as an aggregate total of those 600 plus individuals who have been arrested. So charges have been allocated to them. My only beef is I don't think
they were charged with terrorism.
Allocated to them, and many of them have already
terrorism and insurrection.
Many of them have already pleaded guilty to these charges. That's why they have probated sentences, and they've been mandated to pay a fine. You realize you cannot be mandated to pay a fine until your case has been adjudicated. You understand that, right?
Anyone who's paid a ticket could argue that you've paid a fine before for a crime to make it go away. These people were not charged with terrorism. They were not charged with insurrection, and you call them terrorists and insurrectionists.
You're damn right I call them terrorists.
You think they committed terrorism and the DC police said pay a fine as if you have an expired parking ticket?
That's what the federal government did, madam, and they are completely 100% wrong for how they have treated these members of a terrorist group that went out on January 6th and committed acts of terrorism by statutory definition.
Yep, they had them handle it just like we handle parking tickets because it was so serious of a crime.
So do you admit that crimes did take place on the US Capitol grounds?
Oh, I'm sure crimes take place on the US Capitol grounds every single day. I'm sure there's a crime taking place on the Capitol grounds right now.
Do you think they committed any crimes or not?
I wasn't there. If they committed a crime, I'm sure they were charged for it. But what I am confident in is that they were not charged with terrorism or insurrection, as you keep saying that they are guilty of.
Are you for the police?
Of course.
What about the videos that we see of Capitol Police being assaulted by these same individuals that you're defending? What are your thoughts about that?
I'm not defending anybody's actions. I just am saying that it wasn't terrorism.
Okay, let's move beyond that point. We're gonna agree to disagree on that point. The cops who are on video being assaulted by some of these insurrectionists, what are your thoughts about them assaulting the police?
I don't support the assault of any individual.
Okay, you do admit that what they did to those police officers that is in fact a criminal action, correct?
I would have to review the footage that you're talking about specifically, but if anyone was assaulted, that is a crime.
You have not seen any video? You've seen no video of any Capitol Police officer being assaulted?
I have not personally, no.
Okay, you need to do your homework, madam, if you're gonna come debate me on these issues. Is that fair?
Oh, I did do my homework, but now we're changing the definition of terrorism. So
no, we're not, madam.
It's really
I'm going to read the definition.
I have more homework now because we're really.
I'm going to read the definition again. Your definition is the definition that's incorrect. I am going to read the definition again for the sake of the audience who cares about the truth. I'm going to read it again. Okay, here's the definition of terrorism: a person who uses unlawful violence and intimidation in the pursuit of political aims. Unlawfully using violence and intimidation in the pursuit of a political goal. That's your definition, statutory definition of terrorism. Your definition, you just made it up. All right, let me ask you about.
I did not disagree on the definition of terrorism. I disagreed with your assumption of what the goal of that crowd was.
That's not my assumption. That's what many of them said that their goal was.
No, well, the federal government and the DC police do not agree that that was their goal.
Madam, you're lying again. Many of them who have been charged and arrested, and some of them.
It is not a lie. They have not been charged. You cannot lie about a fact.
Ma'am,
they have not been charged with terrorism or insurrection. That is the position of the federal government and of the DC police.
But madam, here's the lie that you're telling. When you continue to say that they had no political goal whatsoever, that is a lie. We can debate opinion here, but facts, my goodness, it is known as a fact that they have gone on record. Many of them in their plea deals have said that their aim was to stop the certification.
Their plea deals for crimes that were not insurrection or terrorism.
Okay, we're gonna move on, madam.
That's probably the best idea, considering that you cannot handle the fact that none of these people were charged with insurrection or terrorism, yet you keep calling them insurrectionists and terrorists.
But you can't handle
it is probably best to move on, let that one go.
Terrorism fits hand in glove with what they did.
Oh, really? But no one agrees with you because that is not what they are charged with.
That's another lie. 52% of Americans believe that what happened at the US Capitol was an act of terror.
100% of our court systems agree that it was not insurrection or terrorism.
Okay, madam, as I said before, I disagree with the federal government and how they have charged all of these individuals. We will agree to disagree on that point. Let me move on to our second point because we're almost out of time. Are you an anti-vaxxer, anti-masker individual?
I am not anti anything. Whatever you want to do. You want to vaccinate, do it. You want a mask, do it. I'm not doing either.
Do you believe state governments have the constitutional authority to mandate masks?
No.
Tell me, where does it prohibit it in the US Constitution?
Where does it grant the authority to do it?
I can read it to you. Ready for it?
I would like to hear it.
The 10th Amendment of the US Constitution says the power is not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by law or Constitution of the United States, are reserved to the states respectfully or to the people. It emphasizes the right to utilize what's called the fundamental character of the national government in a state allocation of that mandate, i.e. healthcare grievances or a healthcare crisis. That's the 10th Amendment of your US Constitution.
That's a very open interpretation. I would be so happy to hear how people think that would not be abused in the future. So we can mandate masks because the 10th Amendment says that states can mandate whatever they want, that the federal government hasn't mandated. Okay, well, we should mandate every kind of medication. We should mandate workouts. We should mandate a vitamin regimen. Okay. You're saying that they have the ultimate authority to do all of that. I don't think that that was the intention of the 10th Amendment.
Okay, let me ask you this question. Do you wear a seatbelt?
Yes.
Why?
Because I want to keep myself safe.
You want to keep yourself safe. You know, you're mandated by law to wear a seatbelt in virtually every state of the United States. Do you agree with that law?
You can do something because you want to, not because someone tells you to.
Well, let me just ask you fundamentally based on
keep myself safe because I want to keep myself safe. I do not wear a seatbelt because I fear the government telling me that I should do it.
Do you disagree with the government having the authority to mandate seatbelt laws?
I do not think the seatbelt law is necessary either.
So you disagree with the government having the authority statutorily to make a law for you to wear a seatbelt, correct?
Seatbelt laws in this country have been passed in various different ways. Sometimes they are a people's referendum. In that case, I'm like, okay, that went to the people. These are not actually laws. Mask mandates have not been laws. They are regulations and they are executive directives. And that's a much more nuanced argument than I think we're willing to have at this time.
Let me ask you this question, because you continue to skip around and I don't have unlimited time. Do you think it should be illegal for a school system to mandate masks for children and faculty and administration?
I think that the school board should consider their parents and students in those decision-making processes. And I think that the parents and students have spoken widely against mask mandates. So it's not a point of whether or not it's legal or illegal, but these boards are supposed to serve their students and serve the parents of those students. And I don't think that they are doing that.
So let me ask you again in a different way. Do you believe that it is their legal right or legal authority to mandate masks in these school systems? Let's start there first. Do you think it is legal for them to mandate it?
I think it is their legal obligation to represent their students and the parents of those students.
Ma'am, this is a simple question. Do you believe it is legal for a board, school board in particular?
It's not a simple question at all because a school board is not a legislator. They are supposed to serve the students and serve the parents of those students. That is what their legal obligation is to do. They are not Congress, they are not the state legislature, they are supposed to serve those students. So I don't think it's about whether or not they should be mandating masks as much as they should be communicating with their students and their parents to make sure that those schools are representing their needs of those kids.
You're not gonna answer my questions, but I do appreciate your time. Thank you for being on Indisputable. Thank you.